sugar, Candyman. Hey up guys, so today's movie up for discussion is the new horror film from director Nia DaCosta called Candyman, which she wrote along with the help of Win Rosenfeld and Jordan Peele. Candyman is actually a soft reboot or spiritual sequel, if you will, to the 1992 film of the same name that was directed by Bernard Rose. I haven't actually seen that movie. I've heard it's got a bit of a cult following, but yeah, I've never gotten around to watching it myself. And this review, I can't really compare it to the 1992 film because I haven't seen it. So I'm just gonna give you an objective review as someone who's just watched this version of Candyman and only this version of Candyman. I said his name now, what, like 3 times, 2 more, and then I'm gonna summon it, aren't I? Is he behind me? I guess it doesn't count because that's a camera and not a mirror, but I can see myself in the glassy bit of the camera. This version of Candyman is set in 2019 Chicago and follows a hotshot artist called Anthony McCoy, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He lives in this swanky apartment in this gentrified area of Cabrini Greens, which is apparently connected to the first film, apparently, along with his art curator girlfriend, Brianna, who's played by Teyonah Parris. Anthony is stuck in a slump artistically, but after hearing this urban myth story about this killer with a hook for an arm called Candyman from Brianna's brother Troy, played by Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who is excellent in this, by the way, Anthony then finds his inspiration for his next artistic piece. He scopes out the neighborhood of where the Candyman story took place, also in Cabrini Greens, but in a much more ungentrified area of the neighborhood. It's here where he meets laundromat store owner Burke, who's played by Common Domingo, who tells him of the supposed myth about Candyman, which is if you say his name 5 times into a mirror, Candyman will then appear in the reflection and murder you. So Anthony channels that myth into his next installation, which is essentially a mirror, and invites the participants to say his name 5 times, and sure as hell, hipsters and pretentious art critics start dying. So what did I make of Candyman? I actually had mixed feelings on this film. I was really on board during the first 2/3 of Candyman, but in the last act, that's where I found it started to get a bit messy, it felt rushed, and quite frankly, I found it a little bit shallow. It's frustrating because there was so much about the first 2/3 that I really liked, but the final 30 minutes really soured my opinion on the movie overall. It just doesn't stick the landing. But let's talk positives first. During the first 2/3, DaCosta crafts a very chilling atmosphere, which is complemented by Robert Lowe's dark score and John Guleserian's striking cinematography. I also thought that the makeup was impressive. Anthony gets stung by a bee on his hand, and gradually throughout the movie it gets infected and like spreads up his arm. And there was some really gnarly body horror stuff in this, which really made me squirm. And that's down to the very convincing work from the makeup department. They did a great job. I will say that I think the performances were good across the board. I just don't think the characters themselves were written all that well. I think because this is such a message-driven movie that the characters kind of suffer because of it. But still, you get decent performances out of Yahya, Teyonah, Common Domingo, and Nathan Stewart Jarrett. As for negatives, I do think the main issue with Candyman is the script. Like, it certainly has its funny moments. There's a scene where a character opens the door to a dark, suspicious basement and just goes, nope, has the common sense to just turn around and not go down into the basement. It's just like, smart move. That made me laugh out loud. That was hysterical. But there's also a fair share of dialogue which just made me cringe. There was one character that said, oh yeah, necrophilia has always been an item on my bucket list. And I heard loads of people just groan and go, oh, really? Ugh. So yeah, there's a few lines that are a bit clunky. But again, it's the last 30 minutes of the film, which is where it got muddy for me, and my enjoyment levels really started to go downhill quite quickly. So much of the necessary character development felt rushed, particularly with Anthony. It's obvious that DaCosta was trying to say something with this film about the Black Lives Matter movement, gentrification, and police brutality towards the Black community, but her satirical commentary lacks nuance. The third act in particular is very on the nose. It's good that she had a message, it's just the way the message is presented has no subtext. It's all a bit literal. And because of that, it kind of comes across as surface level observation. It's not as profound or clever as Us or Get Out was. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Yes, I would. Honestly, I think a second viewing might help because I'm not sure I fully got everything that was occurring in the third act. Some of it was going a little bit over my head. So I think a second viewing could help. And I know there's enough of what I loved from the first 2/3 to give it another try. So yes, I would watch it again. Question number 2, do I recommend it for you guys? I recommend Candyman to anybody that likes a horror with some social political commentary. It has its funny moments, a pretty suspenseful atmosphere, and it certainly does hold a mirror up to the real-life horrors of the real world. It's a horror/satire, so if you do like movies like Get Out or Us or the TV series Black Mirror, then I'm sure you will get some enjoyment out of Candyman. And third question, what score do I give it out of 10? The ending didn't come together as tidily as I hoped. I thought it was a bit messy, rushed, and a little bit heavy on the message. I guess what I'm trying to say is I prefer it when a horror goes for the more subtle, tactile approach with its message rather than, hitting you over the head with a blunt object. So I'm going to give Candyman a score of 5 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Candyman, this version or the 1992 one. What do you have to say about the films? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this review, please support the channel by hitting that thumbs up button. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars content, don't forget to click subscribe, and if you want to follow me on any of my social media links, Twitter, Instagram, all those links in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Hearfield, and I'll see you next time.